I'm office hours. This is week 3, and as always, it is hosted inside our Rome virtual office auditorium. My name's Ben, and I'm head of customer experience here at Foundation, and I will once again be your host for today's session. If you're joining us live in the auditorium, feel free to give us an emoji wave or drop a hello in the chat. We'd love to know where you're joining us from today. As always, quick bit of housekeeping before we kick things off. Just like the previous 2 weeks, these sessions are recorded and everything that we cover is going to be posted to our YouTube channel, links for which will be shared with you all by email later this week. So if you're watching this back on YouTube, hello, and thank you very much for catching up with week 3. If you're joining us live, feel free to ask questions as we go. Just tap on the ask a question button, wait for a natural break in my presentation, and your mic will go live. Just make sure that you are not muted locally too, so that we can actually hear what you're going to say. We can only take one question at a time, so please wait until the question area is free before you hop up, and make sure to vacate the question area once that you've asked your question, because it's a one in, one out policy, and if you stand there and hog the mic, other people won't be able to speak. Also, if you do want to ask questions and you're not confident getting up onto the microphone, please feel free to drop them in the chat. I've got Amy, one of my team members here at Foundation, and I'm sure she can monitor the chat for me and just send them to me in a DM for those of you that don't want to come up on and get your voice recorded. If you've got your Passport Prime with you, you feel free to get it out now. Today is going to be another hands-on session, although there will be some brief slides at the start just to set the scene. Having a device in front of you is going to make this a lot more valuable if you've got one. But if you're still waiting on yours, don't worry, that's fine. As I say, you're going to be able to follow along. I'm going to be doing another live demo, and everything that we cover is, again, going to be on YouTube so that you can watch back and follow along if and when you do get your device. So quick recap of where we are in the series. Last week was the onboarding and recovery demo, where I walked you through the entire onboarding, backup and recovery process. I also gave a quick tour of the app menus for a brief device kind of orientation to set the scene for the weeks that follow, today being one of them. Today marks week 3, and it's the first of the app-specific deep dives, that is the Bitcoin app. Over the coming weeks, we're also going to be diving into the keys and 2FA apps, the files and the Vault apps, and then finally in week 6, we're going to be wrapping up with a look to the future. If this is your first session and you've not been able to catch up, don't forget to go back onto YouTube, and because I think the first 2 weeks are super valuable, especially if you're new to Passport Prime. And the kind of Foundation ecosystem. They really do set the scene for what we're about to talk about today. All right, so the Bitcoin app, why are we giving it a full entire session all on its own? Well, I think that's probably fairly obvious. You know, Passport Prime is a multi-app device. We've currently got 5 apps on the device. That's soon to be expanding quite significantly. Passport Prime does Bitcoin, passwords, 2FAs, files, vault storage, and there's lots more coming, as I just said. But the Bitcoin app is where most of you are going to spend most of your early days with Passport Prime, because we are a Bitcoin company and many of our customers are already Bitcoiners. So that's why we're showcasing it and giving it, you know, its full dues basically, and spending a full hour on this one. So what we're going to cover? Well, today is going to consist of 6 main areas, and these are like the primary uses of the Bitcoin app within Passport Prime. Obviously, going to teach you how to receive Bitcoin, how to send Bitcoin, how you can use Passport Prime to do multiple account management, which is one of my favorite features within the Bitcoin app. Also going to showcase the third-party wallet connections, because as we've already stated, you are not logged into Envoy when using your Passport Prime with the Bitcoin app. Then I'm going to go into more of the advanced stuff, so passphrases and multisig. If you are coming from Passport Core, which I'm sure many of you are, most of these concepts are going to feel familiar. Obviously, it's wrapped in a new user interface with new connectivity options, but the fundamentals have not changed in any way. So what I'm going to do is set the scene for each of these 6 topics first, just with a couple of slides, very brief ones, and then we're going to roll into a live demo where I'm going to show you the basics of all six live in action. All right, so first off, the most obvious and basic thing that you're going to do with Passport Prime and with whichever wallet software that you choose to connect it to, obviously Envoy being the default and, in our opinion, the easiest way to do so. Most of you watching this, I'm sure, already understand how Bitcoin addresses work, so I'm not going to labor this too much, but there are a couple of things just worth reinforcing, especially for the newcomers. So once you've gone through the onboarding process, that we demonstrated last week, you'll have a master key and you'll have a backup of that master key. Any subsequent addresses that you use to receive Bitcoin are generated and controlled by that master key that we back up to your key cards. So although you're going to see them today across both devices, actually, you can see them on Passport Prime, your addresses, and you can also see them on the Envoy application. It's the Passport Prime device itself that ultimately creates and controls them. Second one, every time that you receive, Envoy is going to give you a fresh address by default. This is not because old addresses stop working. That's absolutely not true. You can happily reuse the same address for the entire time that you use Passport Prime and Envoy if you wanted to. But it's not great from a privacy perspective because you leak a lot of information about how much Bitcoin you have to anybody that has an internet connection and is motivated enough to look at the blockchain to try and glean what's going on with all of the different addresses that take part in all of the various thousands of transactions that happen every single day. So fresh addresses is default within Envoy and Passport Prime, and it's just good hygiene. The third one I'm going to showcase is that you can verify an address on Passport Prime on the screen of the Prime before you share it and before you ultimately receive to it. This is, again, one of my favorite features of the Bitcoin app within Passport Prime because it is your insurance policy against you having or your phone being compromised, and maybe you've somehow downloaded a malicious version of the Envoy application. If there's malware on it, it could be showing you an address that you think belongs to you and your Passport Prime, but it's actually been swapped out for an attacker's address. Well, with our address verify feature, which is essentially just a QR code scan that I'll show you very shortly, you're using Passport Prime, your offline device, as the source of truth. You're basically saying, when you use this feature on Passport Prime, hey, here's an address that's being displayed on my phone. I'm pretty confident it's mine, but I'm just about to send a few $1,000s worth of Bitcoin to it. So can you just scan it and cross-reference it against your own offline and internal list of addresses and let me know if it is truly mine? And fourth, and this is just to kind of reinforce the architecture here, because it can seem counterintuitive to people, especially if they're new to Bitcoin, where they have this hardware device, their Passport Prime in our scenario, but they instigate the receives over on the companion application Envoy. People often get confused as to why that is the case and that it may be less secure. But you can look at Envoy as a window. Envoy is on your phone. It is connected to the internet. It has the ability to speak to the Bitcoin network. And all of those are prerequisites to do things like monitor the blockchain to know and tell you and notify you when you've received some Bitcoin and to show you how much Bitcoin you have. Without a connection directly to the Bitcoin blockchain, you cannot do that. So that's why we have the kind of split architecture where Passport Prime is the keeper of your secrets and it's offline. But then we pair it with the Envoy application, which has enough information and only that information to be able to display your addresses and help coordinate transactions. But ultimately, absolutely nothing moves back out of your Bitcoin wallet without authorization from your Passport Prime. And again, I'm going to show you that today. So the next thing, obviously, once we've got some Bitcoin into one of our Bitcoin accounts on Passport Prime or controlled by Passport Prime, we're going to want to send that back out. And this is where the design philosophy really kind of starts to shine here. So the principle, again, is very simple. Nothing leaves your wallet or your accounts within your wallet until you physically verified what's happening on the Passport Prime screen and that you physically take an action by swiping on the screen to authorize a transaction. Envoy is part of the send process. It constructs the transaction. It does all of the coin selection for you, which you're free to edit if you're an advanced user. It helps you calculate and choose the transaction fees, and then ultimately it will come to a stop and it will say, okay, the transaction is now built, but I need authorization from the holder of the master key. And obviously in our scenario, that is Passport Prime. So that's where the link comes in. So Passport Prime will display exactly what you're about to sign, amounts, destination, fees, and you check all of those against what you intended. You approve it on the device, and only until you've done that, only after you've done that does the signed and authorized transaction come back out and it's actually sent. So the transport, how does the transaction get from your phone to Passport Prime and back again? Well, the default option is Quantum Link. That's our Bluetooth-based communication layer that we discussed last week. If that concept is new to you, I will please urge you again to go back and check that, because we did a bit of a deep dive as to what it is and how it works. If you're using external wallets, let's say Sparrow, Nunchuk, Blue Wallet, there's loads of great options out there, then the more traditional QR codes and micro SD card partially signed Bitcoin transaction flow works. All of this is built on top of the exact same standards and flows that those of you that had Passport Core will be familiar with. So this verification screen, you can see a little snapshot of it on screen here. It's not a formality. These types of address swapping attacks are a real thing. They exist and people have truly lost money to it. So a quick cursory check of the Passport Prime screen when you're signing a transaction to check all the details is worth it. And obviously we force you through that flow. You can't skip it. And again, I'm going to showcase all of this in a couple of minutes. All right, next one. This is genuinely super useful for those of you that act as the sole Bitcoiner of the friendship group or the family. On Passport Prime, you can run multiple Bitcoin accounts. Those are not, strictly speaking, multiple wallets. They are multiple accounts within the same wallet, each within its own what we call derivation path. It has its own balance, its own label, and its own list of unique addresses. And each one pairs independently, but automatically with Envoy, again, thanks to our Quantum Link connection. So why would you want to do this? Well, there's a couple of reasons. Number one is to separate different pots of Bitcoin for your different use cases. So it could be separating spending from savings. It could be keeping personal funds distinct from business funds. That would be another use case. Or it could just be testing things without having to touch your main account. You could just have like a small amount in a separate account for you to just go and mess around maybe with this new device. Some people run one account per purpose. Could be a travel fund, household, long-term storage. The sky's the limit, basically, as to how you can configure all of these different accounts. So what is actually an account in technical terms? It's basically a separate branch of the same tree. You can look at it like a tree structure. It has different public keys, different addresses, and when you deposit funds, that will be a different set of coins to any of the coins within your other accounts that you segregated off for the different purposes. They'll all have their own individual balances, and you cannot, by design, spend from my savings account and my spending account, assuming they're separate, at the same time. That segregation is kind of the whole point here. So it gives you that meaningful separation of funds, but here's the crucial point, without having to worry about backing up any additional information for every single separate pot of Bitcoin that you need for your different use cases. So instead of having 5 different sets of seed words or master key backups to worry about because you have 5 different requirements to segregate for business, friends, family, son, daughter, you name it, you can do that with sub accounts and they're all backed up by the same master key. Very powerful if you know how to use it properly. And of course, all of that additional information or knowledge of those additional sub accounts is all automatically backed up in an encrypted way thanks to our magic backups, which again we went into in a deeper way last week. All right, now we are getting into power user territory. Passphrases. Passphrase is an extra word or phrase that you add on top of your existing master key or seed words, and when you add it, you intentionally get a completely different wallet. It's the same. You can have it on the same device with the same master key, but all of the addresses within the passphrase wallet, again, totally different, completely separate balance, and it's a completely separate wallet that lives alongside your main one. It does not replace it. The mental model that a lot of people use for a passphrase wallet, they sometimes call it a hidden wallet, which is roughly correct. Without the passphrase, you cannot see and access the passphrase wallet. With the passphrase, it appears, and more importantly, it clears the passphrase when Passport Prime is powered off. You'll have to re-enter the passphrase every single session, and that is absolutely by design. It means that the additional passphrase, should you choose to use one, never sits in the device memory longer than it needs to. So why, again, do people choose to use passphrases? Well, three main reasons. Number one is plausible deniability. If someone was to force you to unlock your Passport Prime, you unlock into the default non-passphrase wallet, and they may only see, they'll either see an empty wallet if you don't use it at all, or they'll see the amount of Bitcoin that you've deposited into that kind of standard wallet. Another one is compartmentalization. Again, just like I've discussed with sub accounts, you can also separate your funds using different passphrases. You're not limited to just one passphrase. You can have as many as you want. And the third use case is extra protection. So if your backup, your master key backup, or your plain text seed words are ever stolen, on their own, they only give access to that default wallet. Without the combination of the backup, the master key, and or the seed words, plus the passphrase, you cannot recover access to your funds. So it is an extra layer of security. However, do want to be really honest with you, there is some big trade-offs with passphrases. If you forget your passphrase and you don't have a backup, the funds within that wallet are completely gone. There is no recovery. There is no customer support for the passphrase hotline. There's no reset button. Foundation cannot help you. And your backup cards, your NFC key cards on their own, again, are useless because the passphrase is something additional that you need to have and you need to store diligently to be able to truly leverage it. Passphrases really have burnt a lot of people who do not fully understand them, so this decision to use one is not to be taken lightly. Okay, more power user features. We have another big one. I'm not going to go too much into detail on this today's call, but I do want to highlight that it is obviously a well-used feature within Passport Prime for more advanced users, and that is multisig. The basic idea of multisig is that instead of having one key to sign a transaction, as in the one that lives on your Passport Prime, you would need multiple keys, hence the name multisig. The most common setup that you see these days is a 2 of 3, where you have 3 keys in total, and any 2 of them can be used to sign and authorize to spend some Bitcoin. But you can also have any combination. You can have 3 of 5, you can have 2 of 2. Again, the sky's the limit. So again, why would you want to choose to do this? Well, a single device failure is the main one. If you've got one device and it breaks, you're relying on having a robust backup of that. If you've got a 2 of 3 setup in a multi-signature setup, then you can lose one device and its backup and still be able to spend. So you've removed that single point of failure. Inheritance is another big one. You can give a key to a family member, you can give a key to a lawyer, you can keep one yourself. And you can have distributed signing for couples, business partners, treasury management, all that sort of stuff. Again, as I said, this is more for advanced people. However, again, it's not all sunshine and roses. Multisig does have a lot of moving parts compared to more traditional Bitcoin setups. You've got all of the signers, so that could be, again, 3 in a 2 or 3 setup, all of the devices. You've got the backups for all of those devices. You've got to worry about using a coordinator software like Sparrow. And then you've also got a configuration file backup, which is also something else that you need to know and back up as part of a multi-signature setup. Passport Prime does genuinely make this experience very much more approachable compared to all of the other stuff on the market, but I will not hide from the fact that this is still a power user feature, and the decision to move your family funds or your business funds over to a multi-signature construct should absolutely not be taken lightly. So if you're considering it, please think long and hard about that. All right, final slide. I alluded to this earlier, but Envoy is the best-in-class way to use your Passport Prime from a Bitcoin perspective, but you are not locked in. You can pair Passport Prime with a range of third-party wallets, all of the good ones, Sparrow, Nunchuk, Spectre, Blue Wallet, you name it, it's in there. This matters because Envoy is excellent, but it's opinionated. We intentionally make choices to funnel users and give them what we think is the best use case, but we recognize that might not be to everybody's taste. So, of course, we talk to all of the other open source wallets out there. It's the obvious choice. The way it works at a high level, you can export your account information just like you used to on Passport Core, using the custom flows from the Passport Prime connection menu. Again, I'll show you where that is later. You can import that via to your wallet of choice. So it'll just be scanning a QR code with your phone or with your computer's laptop. And then in a very similar way that it works with Envoy, the third-party wallet software can construct the transaction, and then Passport Prime would authorize it. The only difference being that traditionally Passport Prime will be able to do that via the QR codes or micro SD card rather than using Quantum Link, because Quantum Link is so new. Although it's open source, we haven't seen any adoption outside of our ecosystem yet because it's literally only been out for a matter of weeks. Okay, right, on to the demo. So just give me 1 second to get my devices ready and turn on my camera. Please do let me know if there's any questions. I can see one's come through from Amy. I'm going to try and pick a good time to pick them off, but I'm just conscious of time. So I want to get through some of the demo points first before I hit any of the questions, but do keep them coming. Right, turn off my slides. Okay, let me line up those devices. Can I have a thumbs up? Oh, somebody's already ahead of me. Thank you very much. Okay, let me just quickly see what the question was. I'm not sure who it was from, but it says, in theory, sending to yourself would show the signing workflow as self, right? Yes, that's correct. So if you're sending from an address in your wallet to another address in the same wallet, Passport Prime will indicate that as a self send. Yes, absolutely. Right. Almost ready, guys. Just bear with me 1 second. All right, so just getting my checklist up. Thank you for waiting. Okay, so the first one, receiving Bitcoin. Well, first off, let me set the scene. Apologies. Obviously, you can see we're already set up. We're already connected to Envoy. If you don't know how to do that, that's what we covered last week. So this is the starting point now. We're set up. We've got our master key backup. We have connected to Envoy, which all happens automatically during the onboarding process. And as you can see, I've got 3 accounts in my Envoy wallet. Got the blue account, which is the mobile wallet, where it's a separate standalone wallet. The private keys for this wallet live on my phone, so I can spend using only my phone. Here we have the default Passport Prime account, which is connected for you automatically when you complete the onboarding. And here I have one of my old Passport Core accounts as well, just to demonstrate what all 3 look like when they are showcased together. So receiving Bitcoin, let's do this in order. What does that look like? Well, it literally could not be simpler. Once you are set up, you're just going to tap into the account, the Passport Prime account that you want to receive to, and then you're going to tap the receive button, and you're going to see a static QR code, a text version of the address below, and that's essentially all you need to do from the Foundation ecosystem side of things. So the next natural thing would be that you need to get that address over to whoever it is you're sending to, probably going to be an exchange if you're withdrawing some Bitcoin. So depending on how you access your exchange, if it's on the same phone that Envoy is running on, then you would just tap the copy button. As you saw at the top there, it says it copied it to your clipboard, and you would then just navigate to your exchange application and instigate everything else from over there. So it would be, you click withdraw. At some point during that flow, there would be a field for you to paste in that address, and then you can just trigger off the withdrawal. When the exchange or whoever it is that you're sending to sends the transaction, you'll see that populated in this list here, where it will populate at the top and it will say pending or awaiting confirmation. And you'll see that in a second when I demonstrate the send. Next one is verify address. So this is where Passport Prime comes into its own. And so let's say you're going to withdraw a larger amount from an exchange, or you're going to receive a larger amount from a friend or family member, and you want to just double check that the address is kosher and it's good, and before you send a large amount of funds to it. So what does that look like? Again, couldn't be simpler. You generate the receive address on Envoy. Over on Passport Prime, we're going to open the wallet application. I'm going to tap on the account, and then I'm going to choose verify address. And as you can see, that's opened up the camera on Passport Prime. And all I need to do is grab hold of it, scan the QR code, and wait for a couple of seconds. All we're looking for is that check mark, address verified, and you'll see that the address is a carbon copy. The text version is a carbon copy of the one that you see on Passport Prime. So what Passport Prime has done there is it has verified the address against its own internal list of addresses, and you know that the Envoy application is showing you a true address that does actually belong to you and your secure offline device. So you can have a lot more confidence then before you share that with your friend or family member or whoever it is that is sending you some Bitcoin. So as you can see, I've already received some Bitcoin in here. I've already gone through that process earlier today just to populate some funds. So next up, let's look at how we spend some Bitcoin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send from my Passport Prime account into my mobile wallet. So I'm going to open up my mobile wallet. Again, this is just for a demonstration. This could be you sending back to an exchange to liquidate some Bitcoin, or it could be you sending to a friend or family member to pay them back for dinner. So I'm going to generate my receive address from my mobile wallet. And then I'm going to head into my Passport Prime account. I'm going to tap send. And here we have some fields that I need to populate. So at the top, I'm going to paste the address. Again, this is the address that I'm sending to. And then I'm free to tap how much I want to send. For this purpose, because I've got just a small amount in the wallet, I'm just going to choose send max, which is 5,000 sats in this instance, and then tap confirm. Envoy then shows me the details of the transaction. So it's going to show me how much I'm sending. Obviously that's not the full amount because the fees have been deducted because I'm sending the full balance of the wallet. Where I'm sending to, it allows me to adjust my fee here. I can go from standard to faster, or I can tap custom and I can adjust using the slider there. I'm just going to change that back to standard. So the total amount leaving my wallet is the total amount in my wallet. In this instance, it's 5,000 sats. And then when I'm ready, I just tap sign with Passport. Envoy asks me if I want to add a note to the transaction. Completely optional, and it's just for my own personal kind of accounting notes, so I know when I look back at this transaction in 6 months or 6 years time, I've got some idea of why I actually sent it. For now, I'm just going to choose no thanks. Again, this is Passport Prime has now popped up with some information automatically, again, because of the quantum link connection. So you can see here a little transcription of what's gone on. It's connected to Passport Prime. It's transferred the transaction details over to Passport Prime, and now it is waiting for me to sign. So here's where the focus switches over to Passport Prime. And as you can see, very similar user interface, but it's all been transferred to our offline device for authorization. So again, I'm just going to cross-reference, check all of the amounts match, the address matches. Is the fee okay? Is the total amount okay? Yep, all looks good to me. So I'm just going to swipe across to authorize. The transaction has been successfully signed. It's automatically been sent back over the quantum link connection to Envoy. And as you can see over here, I've got a send button now where I'm ready to broadcast that to the network with the internet connection that lives on Passport Prime. So there's no need to fumble around with QR codes or passing a micro SD card back and forth. This is where the quantum link connection really starts to shine. And there we go. Look, we've got our send transaction awaiting confirmation by the miners on the Bitcoin network. And if I go into my mobile wallet, you can see that the balance has crept up and I have 4,781 sats awaiting confirmation because I've sent into here from my Passport Prime account, which is now empty because I sent the full balance. So pretty easy, right? And again, that is, I know I keep harping on about it, but that is the beauty of the quantum link connection. Everything happens pretty much instantaneously. It's one context switch from Envoy to Passport. You give Passport Prime a swipe, and then it's done. Okay, next up, on to account management. All right, so over on Passport Prime, you can see I'm in the Bitcoin wallet application and I have one account. This is the default primary account that you get as part of every onboarding. So this is what, if you've just gone through the onboarding and you've done nothing else with the device, this is exactly what you will see here. But as I mentioned earlier, we also give you the ability to segregate different pots of Bitcoin for different use cases based on whatever you need to do, essentially. Could be savings, siblings, sons, daughters, you name it. So how do you do that? So all you're going to do is tap the three dots in the top right corner. That brings out a little sub menu. And here I can tap create account. The next thing that Passport Prime is going to ask me to do is to give the account a label. Generally speaking, let me just move my phone over. Generally speaking, the label, it's a good idea to just give the label as the purpose of the account. So let's call this one savings. Again, it's an open text field. You can call it whatever you like. In the advanced options, you can see a bit more information here. You can see the index. Now, I won't dive too deep into this, but this is part of the standard functionality that is used to generate these sub accounts. They operate on sub indexes. If you do nothing at all and you don't even look at this, then Passport Prime will handle it all for you. With each subsequent new sub account that you make, Passport Prime will just increment that number up by 1. It starts on 0, which is the default one that you see. That's this one here. And then any subsequent ones, it will start at 1 and then 2 and so on and so forth. And then when you're ready, you just tap create. So Passport Prime creates the account on the device. And then look at that, instantly, the new account is synced again, thanks to Quantum Link, over to Envoy. So now I have my additional account and the name has also synced across for me to then go and use in the exact same way that I've already showed you, to receive Bitcoin, to send Bitcoin, but to do so in such a way, let me just move that one up there, so I've got my Passport Prime ones together, and I can do that in such a way that the balance, any balance that lives in this Passport Prime account is completely separate from the balance that lives in this Passport Prime account. But crucially, both of those accounts are ultimately recoverable by the keycards that we used during the backup on last week's show. So again, this is my favorite feature of the whole architecture, because I love segregating off the different parts of Bitcoin, and I also love, as I'm sure you will, not having to have to back up loads of different sets of seed words. So the send and receive works in the exact same way as the primary account does. There's literally no difference for me to show you there. But let's say that you create an account and you then drain it, you've liquidated the Bitcoin, or you've handed off your inheritance to your daughter and you no longer need this account. Well, you could just leave it there. It's not doing any harm at all. Or you could archive it and take it, remove it from view, so that you don't need to kind of have to wrestle with it and see it in the user interface if you have absolutely no intentions of ever using it again. So you just tap on the account. We've got some additional menus. I've already shown you the verify address feature. We also have account details. Here you'll see the account number, which I've just talked about when we created the account. We've also got the account fingerprint, which I'm going to go into a little bit later when I talk about passphrases. And there at the bottom, we've got archive account. And there you go. It's just removed it and it's just added it into the archive. And as you can see over on Envoy, it automatically disappears again, thanks to Quantum Link. But let's say you think, oh crap, I didn't want to archive that. I want to bring it back from the dead. Well, don't worry, all is not lost. You can go tap the three dots. You can tap view archive. And here you'll be able to see all of your archived accounts. From here, you can tap into it. You can delete it permanently if you know that you never want to see that account again. Or you can restore it and it will be added back to your accounts list in Passport Prime and in Envoy as well. So for now, let me clean things up. I am going to archive the account. And there we go, it's gone. And let's just show you the full process of deleting it. Delete account. Are you sure you want to delete that permanently? Yes, absolutely. It's gone. There we go. I'm back to just my singular account. Okay, next up, what's on my list? All right, going to move on to passphrases. So what you're looking at right now is the default account. There is no passphrase applied. This is what you see and interact with when you've just gone through the native onboarding. But let's assume you've done your due diligence and you think, you know what, I like the sound of these passphrases. I actually want to, move my funds or add in a passphrase wallet to my security architecture. Let's look at how that works. So again, within the Bitcoin wallet application, we tap the three dots. Then we tap apply passphrase, and then Passport Prime gives us a bit of a warning. Basically what I told you earlier, a passphrase acts as a second layer security to protect your Bitcoin. To access Bitcoin protected by a passphrase, you must re-enter the exact same characters. It is crucial that you back up your passphrase to avoid loss of funds, and I cannot drive that factor home enough. Let's assume that you apply a passphrase to the device, and the passphrase is, let me just do a demonstration. It's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Again, you don't have to use just numbers. It can be alphanumeric, it can be just words, it can be special characters, whatever you want. It's an open text field. But let's assume that you use the passphrase 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You think, great, I'm set up. I have applied that, and I now deposit some funds into the passphrase wallet, which is protected by the passphrase 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You think, great. But unbeknownst to you, because you weren't paying attention and you were rushing, what you actually did was enter the passphrase 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. You made a slight typo. In your head, you think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but in reality, the funds live at the passphrase 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. Now, if you don't know about that mistake, the next time that you enter this passphrase that you see on screen, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you are going to access an entirely empty wallet, and you're going to have a very big panic because you do not see your balance and you do not see the list of addresses that you are familiar with. So that's why I need to really drive home the fact that this is not for beginners, but it can be powerful as an extra, almost look at it as like a second factor authentication for your wallet, that if you're confident and you have a proper backup, then it makes it much more difficult to be able to steal from you and access your funds, even if your backup is compromised. All right, now I've done scaring everybody. Let's apply the passphrase 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to choose apply. All right, so we're going to see the passphrase back, and we're also going to see that fingerprint. Now that fingerprint is a little bit more of a technical term, but what you can look at it as is a short identifier that is an indicator that you are in the right wallet. In my scenario earlier where I said I entered the passphrase 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, well, when I enter that passphrase the next time, I would see a completely different fingerprint here, and that would be my early warning signal to be like, hang on a minute, I just entered what I thought was my passphrase, but the fingerprint is completely different. So it's a unique identifier that is tied to the combination of your master key or your seed words plus your passphrase. So whenever you are using a passphrase wallet for the first time, it is imperative that you note down the fingerprint. Okay, then it wants me to give a label for the primary account that lives within this new passphrase wallet. So I'm just going to call it PP for passphrase demo. But again, it's an open text field. You can call it whatever you want. And then I hit confirm. So that applies the passphrase and displays me my new passphrase account. And then look what happens over on Envoy. I now have a toggle at the top here that I can go between my default wallet, which, to be clear, is the non-passphrase wallet, which is the simplistic way to use it and the way I've just demonstrated for the past 20 minutes, or I can navigate into my passphrase wallet where I can see all of my passphrase accounts. Now, obviously, I've just set this up. It's a brand new passphrase wallet. There is only one account and it's empty, as you can see on screen here. All of the additional sub-account stuff that I mentioned for the past 15 minutes also applies to all of these passphrase wallets. So I can add sub-accounts in here as well. So again, you can have lots of different segregation for all of your Bitcoin. But again, complexity is the, I forget the term now, but basically don't make things too complex too quickly, especially if you're new to all of this. Now with the passphrase, that passphrase will stay active on Passport Prime up until two things happen. Number one, you manually clear it from the device in a way that I'm going to show you in a second, or you turn the device off. So it's never ever saved permanently in the device, and that is completely intentional. So how do you clear it? Well, you just tap on the three dots in the top right, and you tap Clear Passphrase. You'll have a confirmation screen to check that you're happy and that you're ready, and then you tap Clear Passphrase back to the basic non-passphrase wallet, and the passphrase, the view to the passphrase wallet disappears over on Envoy, excuse me, which is wonderful from a plausible deniability perspective, because now when my passphrase is not active over here, or Passport Prime is at home and I've only got my phone with me, there is zero trace on my phone that there's too many P's. A passphrase wallet inside of my Passport Prime even exists. There's no visual cues to it whatsoever. So from a plausible deniability perspective, absolutely excellent. However, it does pose as a little problem that we are going to fix. Don't worry about it, because I can hear some of you thinking about this already. What happens if you want to receive to your passphrase, any of your passphrase accounts, when this device is not connected or not around? So we are going to give you the option to be able to toggle that if you want to, and you're okay with that use case. For now, it does the naive thing of, if the passphrase is active over here and it's in range of Bluetooth range, you'll see it over here. Okay, multisig. All right, let's look at some multisig stuff. So I'm not going to be able to, obviously multisig is quite complex and there's a lot more steps to doing that. So I'm going to bundle up multisig and third-party wallets together because they are one in the same. Let me move Envoy out of the way. We'll focus on Passport Prime for now. So how can I do multisig, and how can I connect to external wallets that are not Envoy? Well, I'm going to tap on the account again. Doesn't matter which account, it just depends on the account that you want to connect to any third-party software. Tap on account details, and then I'm going to tap the three dots and then choose connect wallet. Here you'll see that lovely long list of all of the compatible software that you can choose to connect your Passport Prime to. Won't list them all here, you can see them all on screen, but there's some fantastic options there. For this example, let's choose, you know what? I'm going to demonstrate doing it with Blue Wallet for you. Let me just open up my phone. And all right, let me bring that back in. So Blue Wallet is just an example. So I'm going to choose Blue Wallet from the list. Then it just lets me know, do you want to connect it as a single signature wallet, which is the default for most people, or do I want to set up a multi-sig? For now, I'm going to keep things simple and tap connect as single sig. And Passport Prime now shows me some animated QR codes, which is what we call the public information. Basically, it's enough information to share from here to here, so that Blue Wallet, in this instance, is able to show you your addresses and to show your incoming transactions, but in the exact same way as the Envoy and Passport Prime architecture. Once this is set up, which I'll show you how to do in a second, if somebody steals this or gets access to this alone, no funds move whatsoever. That's the whole point of this architecture. All right, so we've got the QR codes on Passport Prime. Let's choose add a wallet on Blue Wallet, and then I'm going to choose import wallet. Maybe just bring the screen back up. For Blue Wallet, I'm going to choose scan or import a file, and I have my camera open, and I'm just going to There we go. Scan that QR code, happens very quickly. Blue Wallet is going to have a quick search. No wallets were found. Ah, interesting. Ah, because I scanned Bitcoin Keeper instead of Blue Wallet. That will be why. Let me try that again. I was on the wrong format. Let me try that again. Single signature. Import wallet. Scan. There we go. Okay, so I was just there. I thought I'd pressed Blue Wallet on Passport Prime, but I'd actually pressed one of the other export options. And there we go. We have view into our Passport Prime account. You can see our history has popped up now, and we have a zero balance, obviously because I demonstrated that send transaction and sent all of the funds back out. But after that quick QR code scan, I'm free to use this in the more traditional sense, where if I want to send Bitcoin out of this account, I would just do that via scanning QR codes. So there's a little bit more steps compared to the Quantum Link connection that I mentioned earlier, but still absolutely possible, and the choice is completely yours. Okay, I think. Oh, and sorry, multi-signature stuff, just very quickly. The steps are exactly the same. There's just more of them. So you go into account details. Excuse me. Tap the three dots, hit connect wallet, and if you pick a multisig compatible one from this list, again, let's use Blue Wallet as the example. Keep pressing the wrong one. There we go. You would just choose use as part of a multisig. Exact same process. You just have there's different information in those QR codes. It's for a multi-signature setup instead of a single signature setup. I'd love to demonstrate setting up a full one, but it would use up more than the allowable time that we have left on the call. So what I'm going to do now is open Envoy. And then I'm going to go and look at some questions. So I know Amy's got some in the text chat for me, so I'm going to hit those first. But we will give priority to anybody that wants to come up and use their voice up to the stand and ask questions. Feel free to do so now. We've got a little over 10 minutes to pad out with any questions. And if we don't get any more come through, or we get through all of the text ones, then we will happily just close us down slightly early. So the first one, again, apologies, I haven't got the names here, so surely you'll know if it was you who asked the question. What is the recommended length or strength for a passphrase? Yeah, good question. Generally, the general basic advice is 4 to 5 words from the BIP39 seed word list is an easy one. There is also something called the Electronic Freedom Foundation. I think that's the correct name. They also have a little tool that helps you generate passphrases as well. You can do that using dice if you want to, or you can choose that using just picking words out of a hat. The real thing to drive home is just make sure that it is a random passphrase. Don't pick words out of a book. Don't pick song lyrics. Don't pick like a simple 6-letter password that you would use to log into your Google, because if somebody gets access to your seed words and they find no funds in that wallet, they're going to assume that you might have a passphrase, and they will start, they'll point some computing power, and they'll start what's called trying to brute force it. And it's actually easier than you think to brute force weak passphrases, but this is one of those things that happens exponentially. So it grows very, very quickly the longer and more complex your passphrase gets. So if you had something like a 6-letter passphrase, maybe with a number at the end, off the top of my head, I think it's something really trivial like 2 days to be able to just, with some standard hardware, to just brute force that. But if you then move to 4 words, you're looking at like basically impossible, even with government level amounts of computing hardware. So there's some great blog posts and some great articles out there. I'll try and include those into the YouTube description when I post this video, and there's some great posts on there to be able to kind of give you more complex information as to how you can drive that decision. But generally speaking, 4 to 5 words from the BIP39 Bitcoin seed word list is going to be more than adequate. All right, one more question. Is Miniscript still on the roadmap for Passport Prime? Yes, 100%. So for those that aren't aware what Miniscript is, I'll give a bit of context because we do have a couple of minutes left. Miniscript is like multi-signature, which I've talked about briefly today, but it's that on steroids. Miniscript aims to reduce or remove most of the shortcomings of multi-signature, basic multi-signature. So it allows you to do more complex setups where, let's go back to the default setup that I suggested earlier, where you have a two of three. Well, with Miniscript, which is like an additional multi-sig construct, you can have that two of three setup, but you can do some, clever stuff like, say, after 2 years, I want this two of three to become a one of three. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, it's a kind of like an insurance policy against you messing up essentially and losing one of the devices in your two of three and its corresponding backup. If you did that and you didn't have all of your ducks in a row, and you kind of lost more information and more hardware than you needed to from that traditional multisig, then you'd lock yourself out. Don't get me wrong, that's quite difficult to do, but it's not impossible. With Miniscript, you've given that scenario that I just mentioned where you had that kind of degrading construct where after X number of years, we only require signature from one of the keys instead of two. You give yourself that extra layer of protection where you could mess up really badly, and the worst that could happen is that you just have to wait until it degrades down to that one key requirement, so that you can then access your funds again. So it's really cool. It's fairly new and it's not widely accepted or not widely supported yet. But yes, to answer the question in a very long and roundabout way, absolutely, we want to do that. And I think Passport Prime is going to be one of the best because of the quantum link connection and the touchscreen user interface. I think it's going to be really good for being able to communicate what's going on in these more complex multi-sig setups. And I personally am very excited to get that across the line. So yes, absolutely. Okay, well, I'm not seeing any more come through in my DMs from Amy, and I have not seen anybody hop up to the question stand. So I am going to wrap us up. Couple of housekeeping questions. Questions, what am I talking about? Couple of housekeeping points. Next week, myself and most of the team are going to be in Vegas for the big conference of the year. So two things. Number one, obviously there will be no prime time, so we are missing next week. So the next show is going to be 2 weeks today when we're all back at home. Obviously, we'll be sending email reminders out so you don't need to remember all of the information. And also, obviously, if you are in Vegas, please do stop by. We're going to have a booth. Many of the team are going to be there, and I'd love to meet loads of you in person. So please do stop by. I would love to shake some hands and get to chat some Bitcoin with all of you as well. And yeah, I think that's it. I will be uploading this to YouTube very shortly. Thank you for your participation. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you for your support. As always, we really appreciate it. And keep an eye on your email inboxes for recap videos and information on the next show in a couple of weeks. Thanks again, everybody. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you in 2 weeks.